Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Wednesday at 1 p.m. workshop here with NuView Trust Company. Once again, my name is Brian Martinez, and happy Thanksgiving to everyone. Thanks for joining us again. We are not doing Q&A today. Just want to throw that out there, but you're more than welcome to submit questions to our panel. What we're going to do today is just recap what we've talked about in the last couple episodes of our multifamily series. Before we get started, a few things about NuView and who we are. We are a self-directed IRA custodian. We do not give any tax or legal advice. It is really up to you as the investor to do your own due diligence, and then you instruct us where you want to invest your money. So we are going to talk about a little bit of things we've covered. So week one, I went through the different types of IRAs. So I'm going to recap a little bit of that. These are the type of plans that you can use to invest into these alternative assets. The example I gave before is you have companies like Fidelity, Charles Schwab, Merrill Lynch. Those companies limit your investments to the stock market, stocks, bonds, mutual funds. Here at NuView, you can diversify your investments into alternative assets. Most commonly, things like real estate. You can do private lending, mortgage notes, tax liens, and invest in private entities, private companies, private equities. You can have shares in private stock, anything like that that's not publicly traded in the stock market. So a lot of people are looking at these types of investments right now because there's been quite a few losses the past 6 months in the stock market. So people are like, you know what? I don't know if I want to dabble in the stock market anymore. They're looking at these types of investments, things like real estate. It's one of those types of investments that's brick and mortar, something you can feel, you can touch. Not only that, it's always going to be around. People are always going to need somewhere to live. And with the way mortgage rates are going right now, increasing, there's going to be more renters out there. They're not ready to buy. They're going to hold out until hopefully the interest rates drop to a point where they can afford this housing. So this housing market's in a really unstable condition, but doesn't mean it's not a bad time to invest into this market. So these are the types of plans that our clients are able to use to self-direct. You have your traditional and your Roth IRA, probably the most common types of IRAs. Traditional IRAs, typically most clients would have because at some point you might have left an employer and had a 401k plan or a 403b or a TSP. Any of those types of employer plans, you can roll over to an IRA. Most of the time there's pre-tax dollars in there and they would be rolled over to a traditional IRA. If there is post-tax dollars in there, it would go into a Roth IRA. So it depends on how you made your contributions on top of whatever your employer matched to those plans. So the contribution limits for a traditional IRA, it's only $6,000 with a $1,000 catch-up contribution if you are over the age of 50. A Roth IRA, it's the same thing, only $6,000 a year you can contribute with a $1,000 catch-up contribution if you're over the 50. Now, the only difference is the way that they're taxed. A traditional IRA is a pre-tax account. What that means is that you are paying taxes on the money when you take the money out. It's tax deferred. So you can keep that money working for you and growing. Once you reach the age of 59 and a half years old, you're allowed to start taking distributions out. Whenever you take money out of that plan, you're taxed. And it's based on whatever your tax bracket is at that time that you take that money out. So if you're still employed, you might be at a higher tax bracket. If you're completely retired and not earning income anymore, you might be at a lower tax bracket. That's something you want to discuss with your CPA before you take those distributions, of course. Now, you have a RMD with a traditional IRA. What's that? It's a required minimum distribution. So if you kept that money working, you didn't need it, you retired wealthy, but at 72 years old, you are mandatory required to start taking that money out. They're called minimum distributions and they are required. So the IRS says it's time for you to start paying taxes on this tax deferred plan. So start taking that money out in increments as much as you're allowed to, and then pay the taxes. And when your beneficiaries inherit it, same thing, they inherit it tax deferred as well. And then they're going to be required to take the distributions out after you pass over a 10-year period. The Roth IRA is different. The way the Roth is, it's a post-tax account. So you make your contributions to that plan now. So say I contributed that $6,000. I'm going to pay taxes on that. That is taxable. Then I'm going to invest that money. As it grows, it's tax exempt. And when I take it out after the age of 59 and a half years old, well, I can take it out without having to pay taxes on it because I paid taxes on the contribution. Another thing I see a lot of clients doing is called a Roth conversion. So say that traditional IRA, I moved over from a 401k plan and I said, you know what? I know I'm going to be making some great investments and some great returns on these investments. I'd rather pay the taxes on it now and take the hit, because when I'm ready to retire, I know I can grow this account tremendously and I don't want to have to pay taxes again. So say I converted $50,000 of my traditional IRA. It's added to my taxable income for the year 2022. So I paid the taxes on it. And now my Roth IRA is already, it's all in a Roth. I did a Roth conversion. I pay the taxes and it's going to grow and grow and grow. And when I take it out, I don't have to pay taxes anymore on any of those capital gains. So that's pretty cool. It's up to you. You figure out what strategy works best for you. Then you have some other plans called employer plans. You have a solo QRP. If you are self-employed with no common law employees, you would be eligible for this plan. You can contribute a lot more to this plan, $61,000 a year. This is an employer plan, not a personal plan. Can you have multiple plans? You can potentially, but you can't exceed the contribution limits. There's a $6,500 catch-up contribution if you're over the age of 50 in the solo 401k. Then you have your SEP IRA. It's also an employer plan. You can contribute up to $61,000. This one is 25% of whatever your total earned income is at the end of the year. That can be contributed, but it's not to exceed that $61,000. And there is no catch-up contribution on the SEP IRA. So these are also pre-tax accounts similar to the traditional IRA. It's going to grow tax deferred. When you are ready to take distributions out of it, then you pay taxes. It also has that RMD component to it. Another plan is called a simple IRA. This is good for small businesses if you have a few employees. $14,000 can be contributed to this plan. There is a $3,000 catch-up contribution if you're over the age of 50. If you do have employees, there is a mandatory 3% employer match to that plan. So I don't see a whole lot of simple IRAs because the solo 401k plan and the SEP IRA have the higher contributions if you are self-employed. But if you're listening and you have that small business and you don't have, benefits for the employees, you might want to consider the simple IRA. I don't think enough people have looked at that plan and taken advantage of it. A few other specialty plans that can be self-directed. So you have your education savings account. It is a college savings account for your children and grandchildren. $2,000 a year can be contributed to that plan up to the age of their 18th birthday. And that can be used for books, tuition, internet, anything that would be a school expense. Your health savings account, this is only if you have a high deductible healthcare plan, you'd be eligible for a health savings account. You want to check with whoever your medical provider is. If you are eligible, figure out if you have coverage for yourself or your family, because that is what affects your contribution limits. If it's yourself, it's $3,650. And if it's your family, it's $7,300. And if you're over the age of 55, there's an additional $1,000 catch-up contribution. This one's taxed a little bit different. So as you make the contributions, it is tax deductible. And when you take the money out for your medical expenses, it is tax-free. So it's a little bit similar to a traditional and a Roth IRA. Now, at the age of 65 years old, you are required to take it out if you haven't used it for your medical expenses. But it's always going to be tax-free as long as it's used for medical expenses only. All right, so let's go ahead and recap some of the guest speakers we've had so far in the series. The first one was week 2. It was Stephen Gessis, and he is with Smartland. And he had some great points he wanted to make, specifically around the pros of crowdfunding platforms. He gave us some great insight to testing the market, and it has smaller investment minimums, diversification, and multiple investment opportunities. So that's definitely something, if you are interested in learning more about crowdfunding in the multifamily space, I would rewatch week 2's workshop. That was a great one. He also went through what the cons of crowdfunding platforms are. So, you're getting a platform endorsement. It's an oversaturated market, lack of transparency, and there are platform fees. So additional fees you might not see if you're directly investing into an LLC type of deal. So that's something you want to consider before making an investment into a multifamily deal. Do you want to go the crowdfunding route, or do you want to directly invest into the deal without the crowdfunding platform? Another cool thing he talked about was that there's no cap on your earnings. There's this thing called indefinite partnership. This was pretty interesting to me because it was the first time I've ever heard about this. So you can keep that money reinvested over and over and over again. That way your money's always working for you. And the more or the longer period you keep it invested, the more gains you will get at the end when you're ready to retire and take the money out if you're using a self-directed IRA. And he definitely tied it back to IRAs a lot in the presentation. So I definitely encourage you to watch that one over again if you missed it. It was a great one. Not only that, he did cover a few other things about who is the actual owner. What does that mean? If you're, a general partner, who's a general partner? What's their role? And who's the limited partner? That's something you want to learn if you're investing into multifamily deals. Week 3, it was Satch Bernhardt. I know him personally, great guy. He also has a podcast. If you haven't seen it, I would definitely recommend you watch his podcast if you want to learn more. I'm going to go ahead and play a little video, a little snippet of something he mentioned that was pretty impactful for myself.
Later, 7 red flags, things that I'm always looking before, and I always recommend anybody before investing in a syndication, right? When you're looking at an underwriting and you ask for the underwriting, usually most indicators, if they want you to be aware of this, they will put it on the offering deck. But if not, just ask for the underwriting and take a look at this. Cap rate on exit projected lower than current market cap rate. This is bad, right? Like all of this stuff that I'm putting here, those are bad things. You don't want to see this. What that means is that if you're looking at the underwriting, and usually, let's say, for example, here in Orlando, the cap rate right now is 4.5, right? And we're going in, we're buying a property at a 4.5 cap rate, and we're projecting the sale of the property 5 years later at a 3.5 cap rate. That's bad news. It just means that we're being over optimistic, and we think that the market in 5 years from now, so some buyers are going to be willing to pay us a much higher multiple for that property that we pay for it, right? Ideally, what you want to see is that the syndicator is planning to sell the property. If here in Orlando is 4.5 cap, you want to see them projecting the exit at a 5 cap or a 5.5 cap 5 years later, right? So it's like worst case scenario, paying lower multiple 5 years later. So you're being conservative, right? Is another red flag is the sponsor team not investing in the deal. I've never done a deal where the sponsor team is not investing at least 10% of their own money in the deal. We're doing I'm not sure, Brian, if I can talk deal specific, but we're doing a deal right now where total raise is $9 million. We're bringing $1 million of our own money on the sponsor side in the deal. Obviously we like the deal. We also want to participate in it, but also it shows our commitment to the passive investors, right? So always ask them how much money is the sponsor team putting in the deal. Look at how many cycles have they completed in the past. If that should be a red flag. If nobody in the sponsor team has completed any cycles in real estate, multifamily real estate syndications, then obviously I will be very cautious of that, right? Because it could be one of those cases that I just spoke about. Somebody went to a weekend course and now they're putting a deal together. The sponsor team not having any other property in the area, that's very important to me. I love when a sponsor team has more properties in the area, because one, they already know what rents they were able to achieve in that property, and two, they know all the vendors. They have the property management company that they are familiar with, so it just makes everything so much easier, right? They're familiar. They know what they can do to the property to achieve maximum profit. So if they don't know, I've seen sometimes some syndicators, they will buy a property in Texas, and next week they're trying to buy one in Ohio, then the other way in like Washington. So it's like they're all over the place, and they're so scattered. So that's just, to me personally, is a red flag. Another big one is this a sponsor's side hustle? I want to make sure that whoever is in the sponsor team, this is their main thing. Like for me, this is my life, right? I used to be an airline pilot. I'm not. I don't want you to think that I'm flying is my main job and real estate is my side hustle. And if the syndication fails, I'm just going to leave you hanging because I got my flying thing going, right? This is my life. This is my thing. And I got to make it work regardless. So I want everybody investing with me to feel confidence that this is it for me, right? And I want, when you're looking at another sponsor, you want to make sure it's the same for them. If anybody ever tells you that your return is guaranteed, run from it. Your return is not guaranteed, right? And I hear that from some guys sometimes, and I'm like, there's no guarantees. Adjustable interest rate on a bridge loan. That's not so much that you should run away from that deal. It's just that you be extra cautious with the adjustable interest rate on a bridge loan. We do have other syndications that we've done with adjustable interest rate. It's obviously a lot cheaper once if we're trying to sell the property in in like a year or two than getting another like a fixed interest loan with an agency loan, right? Because there's a lot of prepayment penalties. So there's cases in which it does help to have that. Just my main thing will be make sure that the syndicator is planning on getting an interest rate cap. That's like an insurance against the interest rate. If it rises up after a certain level, the insurance kicks in and covers that debt coverage ratio. So just something to look out for. Here, before we go, just a gift for you guys. If you want to download, have a free ebook, you can take a picture of that. Just go to my website, download it. It's completely free. And I'll leave it there for a couple more seconds. If you guys ever want it, you can just reach out. And that's it. That's the end of the presentation, guys. I'll leave it open for Q&A.
All right. So I wanted to replay that because transparency, I think, was the biggest thing I took away from that presentation. He was very transparent on some red flags that you should be looking at before you make any investment. Here at NuView, we see clients, making investments, but they don't always do their due diligence. They might have learned about an investment from a friend or a family, and they didn't really know how to analyze the deal. And this is why we bring guest speakers just like Satch on, so that you can learn how to analyze deals yourself before you make any investment. The last thing we want you to do is make a bad investment, but we can't advise you on what is a good or a bad investment. That crosses our fiduciary line. So the biggest thing that I really liked about that was a few things. First off, get his book. If you don't, it's free. Why not? It'll help you learn a little bit more about multifamily investing. And it's a pretty good book. I started reading it myself. And not only that, it encourages you to just think big picture and start planning for yourself ahead of time. A few other things he talked about that were pretty cool that I really enjoyed was something I'd never really thought about was just what are cap rates? How do the cap rates work exactly? What is realistic? What should a cap rate look like at the beginning of the deal and at the end of the deal, because they're variable, they change. And, I don't think a lot of people that invested in this past year are realizing that if the interest rates stayed the way they are, well, they're probably not going to make as much money on the investments they made. But the people that are investing now when the interest rates are high, they might actually make more money later on if the interest rates drop. So you don't know, you can't predict it, can't control it, but it's a good question and a good thing to learn before you make an investment. A few other things that I liked is that he talked about, does the sponsor have skin in the game? Are they also investing their own money? Because if someone's putting their own money into the deal, well, they're going to want to make sure that deal succeeds. So that's a huge question you should be asking any investment you're making. Know if that sponsor has skin in the game. I know myself going forward, I will always ask that question. So yeah, that was a really good presentation by Satch. Rewatch it. Remember, that was last week's presentation. A few other things he mentioned are what type of fees you can look at when you're investing into a multifamily deal. He compared, deal A and deal B, and you might think one, because it has a higher interest, it's going to pay you more money at the end. But based off the experience the person has and how long they've been doing this, because they might pay you more interest, but who knows if the deal goes sour. But he made some great points. Take a look at it, rewatch it. And if you have any questions, we're going to bring Satch back as well as Steven for our panel presentation at the very end of the series in December. So it's not too far away. And if anybody's listening that you are a sponsor or syndicator out there and you like to get your face out there and be an expert and teach our investors and clients and prospects and our viewers about these types of alternative assets that you are an expert in, please scan this QR code, reach out to me. We'll let you know exactly how that works. We're happy to work together. Make sure you register for the rest of the series. We've got a few more guest speakers and then our great panel at the end that I will be moderating. And I look forward to seeing you all there. Happy Thanksgiving again. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and we'll catch you next week. Bye-bye.